well as the local government. Some other people will understand restructuring to mean resource control. So there isn't a universally agreed understanding of what restructuring is. But that notwithstanding, I believe that restructuring has come to stay as a topic of interest. The reason why the subject of restructuring is generating a lot of interest is because people want to participate and have access to governance as well as control of resources. The fundamental question that we need to ask and indeed find solution to is, why are people talking about restructuring? Why has it become a major issue in our discourse as a policy issue in our country? The reason is that people don't think that the system as we have it today delivers to them what they aspire to see in our country. So it is important that we address this issue of why are people clamoring for restructuring. The second component of it is to say, okay, fine. Let us even agree that tomorrow everybody is going to say, oh, we have a consensus. We will now go for restructuring. The question is, if we don't understand the basis of that clamoring in terms of individual states' understanding or groups' understanding, then it simply means that when we get that restructuring, we won't be able to do much with it. You know, it's like the clamor for PIB. You know, everybody talked about PIB. Once you get PIB, that becomes the panacea to all our problems in the oil and gas sector. Now, PIB has been passed. There's even more almost rebellion on, oh, no, that's not the kind of PIB we were talking about. So it is important at this point in time to understand not only the issue of restructuring, but also to come to terms with the purpose of that restructuring and how we intend to make the most of it. The purpose of this discussion today is really to deepen that discussion by moving the debate from just the esoteric conversation or restructuring to what can actually be done even when we get to restructuring. And also, I want to take it from the point of view, while we're waiting for restructuring, what can we do to move the country forward in a way that is not just equitable, but also that will deliver the desired result? And that is where the issue of national development planning comes in. Nigeria is blessed with resources. Nigeria is blessed with human capital, a lot of human capital. It may interest you to know that the first development plan that was produced in Nigeria was produced in 1946, during the colonial days. And we have been producing development plans from 1946 to date. What I want to do is now to unpack some of these issues and see how development planning has worked, why it hasn't worked, and how we think it should take us to the next level. Development planning started in 1946, as I said, but the indigenous development plan, the first national plan, actually took place, was put in place in 1962. That was 2 years after our independence. The purpose of that plan is to articulate our national aspiration. That is the beautiful thing about national planning. As we are today, we are talking about restructuring. Sometimes we lose sight of the fact that we should be articulating our national aspiration. What is it that we want to have in Nigeria as a country? When you have a national aspiration, we want to be top 10 economy in the world, want to be #1 economy in Africa, want to be this, want to be that. That is a national and credible aspiration. The next logical point of debate will now be to develop implementation strategies that will deliver our national aspiration. That is where National Development Plan comes in. And that is what we have been doing since 1962, when we introduced the first indigenous National Development Plan. If we look at the first, second, third, fourth National Development Plans, we look at SAP, we look at the rolling plans, we look at needs, we look at 7-point agenda, we look at all the plans that you have put in place, including the current economic reform and governance program, you will see that there is something that is fundamentally lacking. In fact, two things that are fundamentally lacking. One is that these plans are, by definition, federal plans. These plans are plans designed and developed at the federal level. They may not produce, or they have not been able to capture the aspirations of the subnational level, the states and local government. So we have a plan that is very well articulated, that takes into account our national aspiration as identified by people at the center. But this national aspiration does not take into account what happens at the subnational level. It does not take into account what happens at the grassroots level. So you produce a plan, you ask the states, or you tell the states, this is the national plan, go and implement it. Of course, what happens is that the states don't pay attention to it because they have no, or they may not have had input in the production of that national plan. So to that extent, you can argue that what you have been producing have been federal plans rather than national plans. My own proposition today is that we should deepen the process of planning to take into account extensively the wishes and aspirations of the subnational level and have some understanding and ownership of the plan at that level. Unless, and of course, until we achieve that level of ownership, we are going to be wasting our time. And I use a specific example to show that it is doable and is being done elsewhere. Our model for national planning was actually copied, if I may say so, from India. And what happens in India is something that we really need to study and see how we adopt it in Nigeria. In India, it takes a period of up to 2 to 3 years to develop a plan. And what they do, when the idea of a plan is conceived, it is taken to the subnational level, to the regions, for them to make input, understand where the country is likely to go to. They will make an input and they will come together and sign an MOU that yes, every part of the country agrees that this is the way to go. If one region or one state objects to any aspect of that plan, it is halted until they are carried along satisfactorily. Now, it is when they are carried along that the project will move forward to the next level, where the nitty-gritty of the plan will now be developed. Because one thing is to say, this is how we like to go as a country. The next level is what to do to deliver on the aspiration of this country. So once that is done, they will set up systems that will synthesize the plan, break it down, allocate responsibilities, itemize resources, and so on and so forth. And go back to the states and say again, is this what you want? Is this how you want it? And if it is agreed, it goes to the next level. The next level will now be for the national level to pass a legislation that says this is our plan as agreed by all levels of the country. Once that is done, you begin to implement. Interestingly, in India, they have no what you call federal projects. There are no federal roads. There are no federal schools in India because everything is owned by the state in which the project or the program is domiciled. So you don't have somebody coming from Abuja to tell you this is federal road. You don't need to go to Abuja to take permission to say we are going to do this road. No, because every road in your state belongs to you. Every project in your state belongs to you. And that project must have been put into the plan. You would have said to yourself, this is what we would like to do. And it's agreed to by everybody, and you put it in the plan. So you go and implement the plan. At the federal level, they have two critical institutions that govern the implementation of the plan. One is the Ministry of Plan Implementation in India. The Ministry of Plan Implementation is solely there to ensure that plans are implemented as defined and developed. The second thing is you have the National Planning Commission that has the statutory responsibility for monitoring and evaluation of the plan that has been executed. So you have an institution that is there to ensure the implementation of the plan, and then you have an institution that is there to ensure that the quality and the specifications of the plan are as defined. So these are the two critical things that we haven't had in Nigeria. We have been producing plans, yes, but these plans are all federal plans. There is no significant ownership because I come from the background of national planning. I was there for 5 years as the executive secretary. So I know that we produce plans that meant very well. We meant well by deriving the process, articulating the process, thinking for the people. But where we have or we did not go far enough is to ask the people we are planning for, is this what you want? If this is not what you want, how do you want it? So until the people tell you this is what you want and take ownership of not just the planning process, but also the execution process, then we are not likely to make significant progress in our planning. And this is where the issue of planning now comes in as the next level for restructuring of the country. So you have whatever you want to call it in the form of restructuring, but the most significant thing is that when you restructure, there is a platform, there is a plan for what you do with the restructured country. It is not when the country has been restructured, then you say, okay, now we have been restructured, so what do we do with the restructured country? It's not likely to generate the result that we are clamoring for. So it is important that we cause debate now to begin to say, okay, when we restructure, how do we execute it? How do we monitor? What is the role of the federal? What will be the role of the states in this scheme of things? So that is the purpose of my intervention today. And I would like it to be very interactive rather than me just talking about this, but I like to engage participants so that we understand that restructuring is fine, it's supported by everybody. I think it's something that everybody is talking about now. But the next level is how do you make that restructuring to work for the good of the people? And also, when you have achieved the restructuring, it is also important that no part of the country is left behind. And the only way you can ensure that no part of the country is left behind because of restructuring is if you have a plan in place that is transparent, that is known to everybody. And part of the resistance, if I may say so, from some quarters to the concept of restructuring is because of the unknown. How would it affect us? The devil you know is better than the angel you don't know. So people begin to say, oh, no, let us hang on to what we have. But if people know that, yes, we are going to restructure, this is the implication for us, and this is how we'll overcome any challenges, then I think everybody will buy into that. So on that note, I want to open it up for discussion.
Thank you very much, Professor Sylvester. You have spoken a lot. I'm not even sure what to ask you again. But currently, Nigerian government have initiated, or just recently initiated, a new national development plan, a midterm national development plan from 2021 to 2025. It's in line with the Nigeria Agenda 2050 to bring out, I think, 100 million people from poverty. Do you think that this particular plan is going to achieve its aim, or is it going to also suffer the same problems you just mentioned about implementation? What do you think?
Well, first of all, that's a very good question. Like I said, we've been planning for Nigeria since 1946. If from 1946 to date, the plan has not taken us to the promised land, we need to ask ourselves, why is it that the plans, the beautiful plans that were produced have not taken us to the promised land? As a matter of fact, I undertook an exercise recently and produced a compendium of our national development plans. And I can show you here. So this is something I did to show that we have plans, extensive plans. See, big volume. The question is, why haven't we used this plan? Why is the plan not delivering the result we desire? For example, the current administration has, produced economic reform and governance program, the ERGP plan, medium-term plan, which has just expired in December 2021. And I know that the National Planning Ministry is working round the clock to produce a successor plan that will run between 2021 to 2025. That is a successor plan. But the fundamental question is, how many Nigerians know that that effort is being put in place? How many states are involved in this plan? What is their input in terms of their desire, their aspiration? Is there any agreement by all the stakeholders? I mean, I'm talking about the 3 tiers of government to say, yes, we agree with this aspiration. We agree with this trajectory. We agree with the resource plan. We agree with the outcome that is intended. Now, if that is everybody's agreement and people sign an MOU to say, yes, we commit to implementing this plan, I think we'll get a better result. But so far, I don't have a sense that we have achieved that particular component of the planning process, i.e. the deepening of the stakeholder engagement. So that will be my answer to you. Because yes, we hear on TV and radio and social media that we are planning to create 100 million jobs. Fine, very noble aspiration. Nobody can fault that. But the big question is, how is it going to be done? What will be the role of the states? Because you probably know that federal government has no territory. Federal government. Every part of the country is owned by a state. Either the state, 36 states, or you have the local government, and so on and so forth. So if you are going to implement the plan, it has to be implemented by the owners of the territory in which you want to do the plan. If you want to do roads or bridges, the roads and bridges must be in somebody's territory. What is the person's input in your aspiration to create a bridge or a road? What is their commitment to this, your aspiration? That is the critical question.
Okay, remember that you can join the discussion simply by raising your digital hand. I can see one hand here. Dr. Sheiko, please, the floor is yours.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. And thank you. I must commend the way the professor is leading this conversation, and he has really said a lot regarding the topic. But one thing I just wanted to add or make some comment regarding what he has said so far. And of importance is the issue of implementation. The professor raised a book up that he has combined together of series of planning that have taken place over the years. And I can agree that those planning, they were actually launched, maybe they were launched, and unsuccessful. So to be able to put this in perspective, if we're looking at sustainable development, that is an issue of a long-term thing. It's very long-term. That is like a vision that you have for a place, a country, some sort. And then you now have what you call national planning, which are usually in parastatals, and then the plan, which are very short-term in nature. So now, and when you want to talk about the plans of short-term, maybe a year, 2 years of some sort, then that is where the issue of the day-to-day arrangement of government comes into play. Because for you to be able to achieve the long term, you have to be able to look at your day-to-day activities as it aligns with that long term. And over the years, we can all agree that the issue of change in government has played a role in this. And this government, they come into play with different agenda. They do not align. There is not the national vision is not aligned with our day-to-day politics. And that has been a major problem. How can we be able to align our day-to-day politics to the vision of the country? You find out that a government of yesterday has a different agenda, and the country does not even have a vision for the long term. Now, the issue of restructuring born out from the inefficiency, ineffectiveness of this series of administration. A lot of people now are not comfortable with the way things are going, and they feel, you know what, this is not working as a whole. Why don't we run this thing from a different perspective, maybe cultural or whatever restructuring format that they deem fit? So the key issue here is inefficiency, ineptitude of leadership to align their governance with the sustainable planning for the nation. So the professor has rightly pointed out key points regarding the planning and issue of implementation. How do we implement? We have, there should be watchdog in government, okay? When you launch all these plans, there are people that are supposed to execute these plans, and there are people who are monitoring this plan. In case these plans are not going the way they should go, who should be held accountable? Has anybody really be held accountable for not executing their role in all of these plans over time? That is another key issue. So, and this now brings us to the issue of systemic failure, all right? It's one department may be doing the right thing, but the other department is not doing the right thing. The law enforcement agent who are supposed to arrest culprits may be doing the right thing, but is the judge going to align with that enforcement? These are some of the issues that I think are really bordering on our country and is very endemic.
Thank you, Dr. Shekwo. Dr. Shekwo has said quite a lot, but let me align the discussion so that it is focused on delivering credible outcome. You know, the issue is not whether we have been producing plans. The answer is yes, we have been producing very credible plans. I will tell you that one of the most successful plans that we have produced in the course of Nigeria's history is the National Economic Empowerment Development Strategy called NEEDS. That NEEDS was introduced between the year 2003 and 2007. You will recall that that was the year we generated the fastest period in our economic growth. Why was it so successful? There are two reasons. One is that it took a long time to prepare that document. In fact, Nigeria was in a state of flux when that plan came in, and it was driven with singular focus and determination by the former president Olusegun Obasanjo. Remember, he had national management, economic management team in place, for which he chaired. He met once a month with all the stakeholders to be debriefed on the success or the progress on the implementation of the plan. This was a very personal thing to him. And there was also economic team that was headed by the then finance minister, Dr. Konje Iweala. And the team met every week. And the purpose of the meeting was not, it wasn't a talk shop. It was for the strategic ministries and agencies of government to provide brief on progress on their plan. There was a detailed metrics with clearly defined outcomes that says by this period you should have done A, B, C, D. So the purpose of the economic management meetings was basically to come and report on what you have done. And if you have not made the progress, why you haven't made the progress. If you give reason why you haven't made the progress, economic team will intervene. If there was a blockage, to unblock it. Because the purpose is not to catch thief. The purpose is to ensure that there was progress. So that was very successful. I am saying that that is the way to go in terms of implementation. It is not good enough to say we have the best plan. Fine, that is a starting point. But the next logical thing is the implementation at the subnational level. And I'm saying to you that the reason why we do not have progress in the implementation of national plans at the subnational level is because of lack of ownership of that plan at that level. In other words, you come to Anambra State, you tell Anambra State you have produced a wonderful plan. So how does that concern Anambra State that you have produced a wonderful plan in Abuja? Or you go to Edo State and say to Edo, oh, by the way, this is the plan for the country. You should follow this. They will ask you, sorry, I have my own plan. They will tell you, we have our own plan. So there is no synergy in planning. You have pockets of planning initiatives at the subnational level, but these plans have they're not in sync with the broad national plan. So what we are saying is, rather than allow the states to go and produce their own plans, which they will now begin to develop and begin to implement with all sorts of difficulties, come together. Let the states be part of the national development plan. Let the states, local government be part of the plan. And once you have that ownership, automatically you run with it because it is what you want. It is a recognition that you wanted a road here. You put that road on the plan. So once they say go, you go and fix the road because it's your road, it's your desire. You put it there and you've been given the resources to do what you said you would like to do. And it's been agreed by everybody that that's what you should do. So it makes it easier. So that is really the thrust of this, my proposition, that we should begin to expand the level of engagement in the development of our plans so that somebody in Kebbi State will produce their own plan. They may say, look, we want to work on rice. To do this rice, we need A, B, C, D. Can you put it in the plan? Hold us responsible if we don't do A, B, C, D, because that's what we want to do. Give us the resources, monitor us, we will ensure that we deliver because that's our own idea. But for somebody to come from Abuja to tell somebody in Kebbi, oh, go and do rice because your soil is very fertile, we'll give you support. It doesn't work. That is the point I'm making. It has to be owner-driven, sponsor-driven. That is the difference I'm making.
Okay, remember that you can join the conversation simply by raising your digital hand, and we will try to accommodate as many participants as time permits us. Now, Professor Sylvester, do you agree that one of the major problems of Nigeria is structural and not fiscal policy. Do you agree with this?
Sorry, can you repeat that? I didn't quite get that.
I said, do you agree that one of the major problems in Nigeria is structural, not fiscal policy? Do you agree?
Well, you see, the word structural presupposes that there are fundamental issues that are wrong with the structure of the country in terms of governance arrangement. Now, we can have a debate on that. But what I am saying, under the structure that we have, if you drive your policy development and policy implementation to the point that you ensure that aspirations are delivered, then that structural defect that you are thinking about will become less significant. You see, Nigeria is a country of 200 million people. It's a very large country. But Nigeria has only population, maybe 20% of the population of India. Nigeria has the size, and it's a small part of India. But in India, this is work. From Delhi to Chennai, it works. The reason why it works is that everybody is part of the plan. Everybody is part of the system. So you go back to a region and part of your state to do what has been agreed. You have no business going to Abuja every month to go and collect handouts. No, your job is to do what has been agreed. So you'll be held responsible as a regional or as a state governor or administrator in India. And they're very vicious about the enforcement of their plan. So that is what works. It is not about the structure, whether it's large or small or something. No, it is immaterial who is the president at the center. It is immaterial who is this minister or that. What matters is that the people at the region are focused on doing what has been agreed nationally that they should do. So they are not interested in what is happening in another state, another region. They're interested in doing what they have subscribed to. They have subscribed and signed an MOU, an agreement that this is what we'll do. If we don't do it, hold us responsible. And once that is done, then everybody goes to work. So the issue of structure becomes less visible. But where you are not sure of how to deliver, you begin to tinker with all sorts of things. You begin to talk about the structure, you begin to talk about the people, you begin to talk about corruption. All these things are part of a larger problem that comes from lack of effective and implementable plan. That is my take.
Okay, now you mentioned something about the plan lacking ownership. Don't you think that the budget being submitted to the federal government yearly by different state governments, don't you think it has an input in making the national development plan?
Well, we should have a conversation. The conversation should be the involvement and the ownership of the national plan. I said at the beginning that there's a difference between a federal plan produced with the best of intention by the federal government and a national plan that has taken into account the wishes and aspirations of the people at the subnational level. To be honest with you, when I was at the federal level, I didn't appreciate the importance and the magnitude of this problem until I went to work at the subnational level. So I have won the two caps. Now I know that the only way is to make the subnational level part of the plan. If you give them, it's like you own a car. There's a difference between owning a car and hiring a car. If you hire a car, the chances are that you are not as careful with the car that you hire than the one that you own yourself. So if you own a car, you own it. It's your property. You take care of it. You'll ensure that it delivers. If you hire, The objective is that, okay, if it doesn't work, I call the owner of the car to come and take it, fix it, and possibly give me another one. That is the attitude. So what we are saying is that there should be a deeper understanding of the plan. There should be a deeper ownership by the stakeholders, and there should be some institutions that will be responsible for the implementation and the monitoring. You know, anything that doesn't get monitored doesn't get done.
Okay, to talk about inclusiveness and inclusion, shouldn't the local government be part of these stakeholders rather than the state government? Because local governments are closer to the grassroots and they understand the wishes of the people better than the state government and the federal government. So shouldn't it be advocating of the state government being included in the planning process rather than the state government?
I totally agree with you, but you see, that is why I am very careful when I choose my words. I was talking about subnational level. So when I talk about subnational level, I'm talking about the states and the local governments. So the two together make up the subnational level. I am saying, so if I say occasionally states, I say it in a loose term to incorporate the local government as well. So you cannot operate without the 774 local governments. It has been broken down to a very minute detail. So if you have 774 local governments, it means we have 774 local council chairmen who you know where they are, who are easily accessible, who know their people, who know their issues and problems and possible solutions. So it's important that when we talk about subnational level, we recognize the role of the local government.
Okay, let's take this comment from Elombah Television. Elombah Television, the platform.
Right, Prof, I find your answer to that question about the structure very interesting. But then my question will be, if the structure is defective, how will any plan work? As the Latin maxim will say, ex nihil fit. But nothing will stand. So if you take Nigeria as an example, if the structural makeup of Nigeria is defective at the foundation, what will you build on it? You cannot build something upon nothing.
Okay, just before Professor Sylvester makes his comment to that question, please remember that when you raise your hand and you ask the question, please remember to lower your hand down so that I will know to move on from you. And Professor Sylvester, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. I will not agree that our structure is completely useless, to the point that you are saying you can't build nothing on nothing. I mean, something on nothing. There may well be issues of the effectiveness of the structure as we have it today. And I put it to you that the fundamental reason why we are seeing the fault lines, as it were, is because the people who expect to benefit from their plans and aspirations as people of Nigeria are not having the desired result on what we have currently. And the reason is that we are not deploying the necessary governance plans effectively. And people are saying, I want somebody from my part of the country to be president. I want somebody from my village to be governor. I want somebody from my place to be local government. The reason is because you are not getting the benefit. So you imagine that if you have a president from here, you are going to be better off. If you have somebody from your village, it's going to be better off. No, that is not the solution. The solution is to say, okay, even with this structure as we have it today, we said it is not effective. And why is it not effective? Is because we don't have a plan that has taken into account the aspirations of everybody. If you have a plan that has taken into account the aspiration of somebody from Anambra, Gombe State, or your state, and everybody, you don't care who is in Abuja. All you care is that I know I'm going to have 10 roads in my place next year. That's what matters to you. What matters to you is not who is in Abuja. It is what comes to you that matters to you. And I said to you that unless you have a plan that ensures that we deliver on those basic rights and privileges that you desire, then we'll keep talking about the structure. And I am saying that restructuring, as important as it may be, cannot be a solution in itself. It is only, it's not the destination. It is part of the journey. So I am saying to you that the destination must be the realization of everybody's aspiration in Nigeria. So people see restructuring as part of the problem along the line. So that is my point.
Let me reframe my question this way before we go on, please. I get the point about good governance assuaging the agitation for restructuring. But when you made the point about people owning the plan, and that is where they will feel part of it, and so they will work along with the plan. But if in the way the country is structured, for instance, makes people look up to Abuja in the first place, every month we have FAAC meeting, every state will come to Abuja to collect the allocation. So that means everything flows from the center. That is the structure we are operating. And so that makes the federal government feels impelled to simply draw up a plan and tell the rest of the country, this is the plan we have. But if the structure is as it was in the First Republic, where the regions source their own income, they control their resources and simply give a percentage of what they have accumulated as their resources to the federal government. And that is why the regions were much stronger then than the federal government. That was the structure we have. So that will now make the federal government to go to the regions and say, come, let us have a plan. But if we have 36 states, all depending on the federal government for their allocation, what impetus will the federal government have to come and say to these states, come, let's have a plan, which they all go hand, cap in hand every month to Abuja to collect their allocation? What do you have to say to that? That's what I mean by the structure.
Okay, that's why first of all, if you notice, I did not talk about good governance. I did not talk about good governance. What I am hammering on is that if you have a plan, let me give you a typical example. You have a pilot who is going to fly from Abuja to London. The first thing you do as a pilot is to do a route map, a route plan. You look at the altitude, you look at the wind temperature, you look at the headwind, you look at everything, and you plot it, put everything to a computer. Computer will tell you, based on the parameters you have put in, this journey will take us 6 hours or 5.5 hours. And that is, and it will tell you the altitude and everything. And that is why when you take off as a pilot, you hit turbulence. It is very uncomfortable, but pilot will not change course. The pilot will not change altitude, unless, of course, directed by the control tower. But you stick to your plan. Sometimes uncomfortable outcomes are in the process, but the ultimate thing is that you have a plan and you have a destination, and you move to that destination. The gene is out of the bottle. What happened in the 60s with the 6 regions, we now have 36 states and 1 federal capital. So what are you sure people would like to go back to regions? Are you sure that if you talk about Eastern region, for argument's sake, the people of Rivers State or Akwa Ibom or or Cross River State, we want to go back to the Eastern region. Are you sure? Those are some of the fundamentals we need to think about. So it is no longer, let's go back to the basics as it were. Yes, a lot of water has passed under the bridge. So how do we make the most of the current situation? When we say restructuring, what do we mean? That is the big problem. What do we mean by restructuring? Is it going back to what we had in the 60s? Is that what everybody is clamoring for? Or is it that we should devolve power to the states and resources to the states? And if you do that, I am saying, if you do either of the two, you still need to have a compass guides the movement of the people to the promised land. That compass is what I call National Development Plan. I am not saying that restructuring shouldn't happen. I am saying that restructuring can happen or must happen, but it will be meaningless unless you have that compass. And that compass is a National Development Plan that has a nationally agreed agenda. If people in a region say this is what we want, that's fine. If people in a particular region say this is what they want, that is fine. But that is something that has to be agreed and worked upon by all stakeholders transparently. And then you see that you have no business going to Abuja to share money. Even if you want to collect whatever that is due to you, it is going to be deployed for what has already been agreed. And the job of this federal government will now be to monitor the implementation of what has been agreed to ensure compliance. That is really the point I'm making. So I'm looking at the compass. I see the National Development Plan as the compass, not necessarily as the infrastructure, as the plane, as it were.
Okay. Our time is almost past spent. Dr. Shoko, are you trying to make a new comment, or because I'm seeing your hand is still raised up, and I know you made a comment.
Yes, I'm trying to make a new comment because what the professor.
Please, you have to be fast because our time is past spent. So please go ahead.
Sure. I just wanted to say a few things regarding what the professor is saying, because if we are looking at economic planning, we are not looking at the financial only. We're talking about human and all of that. I remember growing up in Nigeria, we used to have inter-house sport competition in secondary school, primary school, and all of that. And I dare say that a country always will want to see where they want to go on a very long term, okay? And that could include where we want to see ourselves in global competitions, global, anything global, politics and all of that. So some of this planning that you're talking about, sir, that you think that are not the lower sub-governments are not aligning with, are they backed by legislation? Because if they are not backed by legislation, I mean, what kind of planning is that, sir?
Well, that's a very good question. None of our plans has ever been backed by legislation. None, unlike India. India has a plan passed by the parliament as law. It's like budget. They pass it, this is the plan, this is what you must do. So if you deviate from that plan, you must go back to the parliament to say, I approve that we should deviate. So we don't have any plan that has ever been passed into law.
Do we do that then?
Yes, this is all part of the deepening of the. I said,
don't forget the US, that's what they do here.
Yeah, don't forget that what I said to you at the beginning is that we need to have a system that takes into account the aspirations of everybody, and that in India, they will sign an MOU to agree in an MOU format that they want to start discussion even. They will agree that we want to discuss. That's the starting point. Should you have a plan? Everyone say, yes, we should have a plan. They will sign, agree, okay, let's begin the discussion for the plan. There's an MOU. And that is how you do it. There's an agreement that we have all agreed, we all subscribed. to the fact that we should have a plan. Then when it's all done, it is passed into law. It's law. If you don't implement the law, it is an offense punishable by maybe jail sentence or fine or whatever it is. But you have the federal agencies who monitor the implementation of that law. That is really the issue.
So at this point, sorry, Prof, my question will be, you were former President Goodluck Jonathan's special advisor on performance monitoring and evaluation for so many years. And did you give this advice to the president at that time? Let us have a national budget, national planning that should be backed by law.
Yes, as a matter of fact, again, we did quite a lot. This is another book, the Ministerial Scorecard, and if you look at the bottom, the forward was written by President Goodluck himself. These are some of the initiatives that we put in place. As a matter of fact, we had a draft law titled Project Implementation and Sustainability Bill that was never passed. We had a draft, even a draft, to say, look, if you start a project, you must finish that project before you can take on a new project. There are a few things that we initiated, and I'm proud to say that I have documented some of these things so that people can see some of the initiatives that were already in place at the time and the trajectory that the country was going into. But I am saying that the essence of this conversation is to bring some of these things to the fore so that everybody can engage in the debate, and then at the end of the day, come together and say, yes, this is the right way to go. And once Nigerians agree, this is why it has to be engagement. Nigerians must agree. If, for example, people know that we have never had any of our plans as law, then you know why we're not implementing it. It's not binding on anybody. So if you go and say we are going to do 2 roads in Imo State, and there's no law, no compulsion that says you must do 2 roads, how do you do that? Somebody will come and say to you, oh, we can't do roads because of budget. What budget? It's a case of, all right, I've decided that that's not where I'm going this year. So the same thing happens when you have policy changes. The reason why we have this policy somersault is because they are not law, they are not backed up by law. They are just aspirational statements or wishes of an administration that says, we'd like to do this. Another one comes and says, no, that's not what I want to do. I want to do. If it's law, you follow it. It's like EFCC. EFCC is an institution built on law that successive administrations have used. Obasanjo's administration introduced EFCC. EFCC is being used to good effect by President Muhammadu Buhari's administration. He's not asking who passed the law. All he knows is that there's a law governing the operations of EFCC. That's what we're saying. If we have plans that are backed on by law, it means everybody is compelled to do what the plan says. So it's a good point.
Okay. Like I said, currently we have the 2021-2025 law and then 2026-2030 law. Do you assume or do you believe that this present administration will consider the idea of taking these plans and backing them by law? Do you believe that it's something that is possible? And also, do you also think that this current administration too can initiate the plans to restructure Nigeria? Because you were mentioning something about that.
Well, first of all, let me tell you that the process of making a law is quite extensive and consultative. You can't make a law without consulting the people. And if we start the process and say, okay, this plan is going to be made into a law, it means you have to take it to the people. That is precisely the point I'm making. If you don't take it to the people, how do you make the law and say you will do this plan whether you like it or not? No, you can't. It will not work. In fact, National Assembly will not pass it into law because they are a critical stakeholder in the process. So you need to consult the National Assembly. You need the National Assembly members are representatives of the people. They are not there on their own. They are representing their people, and their people will say to them, "Don't be part of that law because we don't know anything about it," and they will not support it. So that is the point I'm making, that the starting point is to agree as a country that this is the way to go. Once you agree that this is the way to go, you sign an MOU, you begin the discussion. That discussion will be so extensive. That's why I said in India, it takes at least 3 years to finish this engagement before you can say we have a plan that can be passed into law.
Okay, whatever happens
I don't know any country in the world that passes a law a plan without the law backing. You know, in the US, you know, there's a discussion going on about infrastructure. I think 1 trillion, I don't know the exact figure, for infrastructure that President Biden is pushing. You see, he's going around campaigning around the country to get the buy-in of Americans into that infrastructure plan. The idea that once it is agreed to, they will take to Congress, it will be passed into law, and then they begin to implement it. So there's no way, I know, that can implement law, plan without being backed up by forces of law.
Okay, I asked a different question, but our time is fast spent, so we're just going to move on. What happens to the draft law you said you during your time with the former president, Goodluck? What happened to that draft law? Why wasn't it passed?
It's a
draft
proposal.
Bill, sorry.
Yeah, it's a bill is a proposal. You know, sometimes it takes a long time to pass a bill. If you're familiar with our processes, you know that it can be tedious. And also, if you look at PIB, for example, it took maybe over 10 years to pass PIB. But the critical thing is that you have to have a committed driver. Even if it takes 10 years, you have to have a driver who is going to drive that process to conclusion. That is really what I am saying, that the national planning as an institution should be the critical driver, but they should be guided to deliver on that.
Okay, Elombah Television, your hand is up.
Yes, Professor Monye, I come again because this statement actually, I'm sure will irritate a lot of Nigerians on hearing that. Why has our national planning, our national budget remained mere aspirations? In the UK, like you said, in fact, a budget is called a bill, where it's incorporated into a Queen's speech, which the Queen will come to Parliament and read it out. And once the Parliament agrees to the Queen's speech, once it passes, it becomes a law. And so the government of the UK is obliged to carry out everything stated in the Queen's speech. You have given us the example of the United States. Why has that of Nigerians remained mere aspirations? Is that the way to build a country? What do you think? Or are we why should we remain a planless society?
Well, first of all, there's a difference between a budget and a medium-term plan. A budget is an annual plan. That's what a budget is. Our annual plans in the form of budget are passed into law by a National Assembly. That is different from what I'm saying. What I am saying is the medium-term and the long-term plan. So you see, there's a difference. So our annual plans are not aspirational. They are backed by law, which the president signs